Hello, 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 hello. Let me know if you see me. Let me know if you hear me with important breaking news in the Breonna Taylor murder case. I just want to send out a text message to people that I'm live. Give me 1 second. Please, please, please press the like button. Share this very important live stream. Let me know if you... Hold on, just sending out the text message. Here we go. 3271154. And going live on Periscope. Okay. The Attorney General of Kentucky just announced, let me just wait a minute or two for more people to come in so they could hear me from the beginning. We got 60 people watching right now, so please press that thumbs up button, even if you're feeling sick like I am. Right now, protests are underway in Louisville, Kentucky, after only one of 3 officers has been charged in the murder of Breonna Taylor. And from my understanding of the charges, he is not actually being charged for anything having to do with Breonna Taylor, which is an important point. So let me start from the beginning, and we could get into all the different angles. And again, please press that like button. I'm usually live earlier, so people might not know that I'm live. Press the share button if you can, so more people get this live stream. So 3 officers were involved with the murder of Breonna Taylor. A no-knock warrant was issued the night in March where she was murdered. And when I was in Louisville, and we're going to replay some of those clips. When I was in Louisville reporting during the summer, I was told by activists as well as lawmakers that there were multiple witnesses who said, the text message hasn't shown up? God dang it. Hold on. Don't you hate when you have to do all these things live? Hold on. Jen is in flight. She would usually be doing she would usually be the one doing all this, but she is on a flight to the West Coast, so let me do it. My account. Sorry, folks. Give me 1 second. Settings. Manage account. Tech subscribers. Campaigns. Sorry, 1 second. Contacts. Nah, I don't know how to do it, so hopefully more people come. So, bottom line, there were multiple witnesses when I was there, and there are multiple witnesses that have been reported that heard the police there and said they did not announce themselves when they were there for Breonna Taylor. When they did not announce themselves, according to witnesses, they used a battering ram to barge in. The Attorney General of Kentucky just announced no manslaughter, first-degree wanton endangerment. And what that basically means is, and I'll just read the actual criminal statute here. Wanton endangerment. A person is guilty of wanton endangerment in Kentucky in the first degree when, under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person. First-degree wanton endangerment is a Class D felony, punishable with fines of up to $10,000 and up to 5 years in prison. Replenish the text. Sorry, I'm just texting Jen. So, Officer Mattingly, who was the sergeant who first shot in to the home, he is the only police officer being charged, not for manslaughter, but for wanton endangerment, which is essentially he disregarded the substantial danger of death and serious illness. Now, the Attorney General of Kentucky is saying that the officers did announce they were police, and they did announce themselves. And he cited other police officers at the scene saying that they announced themselves, and one independent witness who said they announced themselves. So the Attorney General of Kentucky has said that essentially, because other police say they announced themselves, and one independent civilian says they announced themselves, that it actually, even though it was executed, the search warrant was executed as a no-knock warrant, that they didn't actually do the search warrant. Even though they had the ability to do it as a no-knock warrant, he's saying they did announce themselves based on other police saying it and one witness. I am telling you, having reported on the ground in Louisville, Kentucky, there were several witnesses who said that they did not hear the police announce themselves. So essentially, the Attorney General, the grand jury decided not to indict any of the officers on manslaughter, and only to indict one officer, one of three, on wanton endangerment, predominantly because the Attorney General presented evidence that they did announce themselves. The Attorney General said that their investigation found Officer Mattingly and Cosgrove were legally justified to shoot Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend, because they were shot at first. So this is beyond backwards. So I'm going to start from the beginning. It is beyond backwards and disgusting that essentially one officer is facing up to 5 years in jail. And the worst part of all this, I'm going to show you a tweet from Benjamin Crump, the attorney for Breonna Taylor's family. Jefferson County Grand Jury indicts former officer Brett Hankinson with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in first degree for bullets that went into other apartments, but nothing for the murder of Breonna Taylor. That is outrageous and offensive. If Brett Hankinson's behavior was wanton endangerment to people in neighboring apartments, then it should have been wanton endangerment in Breonna Taylor's apartment. In fact, it should have been ruled wanton murder. So let me just break this down if you're not understanding it, because there's a lot of complicated legal terms. And please share this live stream, get it out to more people. Let me see. Oh, why can't I replenish? Hold on one second. My account, settings, dashboard. I'm trying to replenish our text messages. Total messages, text subscribers, text opt-outs, campaigns. There's campaigns. Damn. So, what is incredible about this, and it's truly sickening. First of all, I'm not going to read this whole article, but there's been reports that the no-knock warrant for Breonna Taylor was illegal in the first place. It should have never been signed. Frankly, the judge who signed it was fed false information. Just after midnight on March 13th, police in Louisville on a drug raid forced their way into the home of Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old black woman who worked as an emergency room technician. Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, a licensed gun owner, woke up and grabbed his gun. According to the police, Walker then fired at them, and then the police returned with a storm of at least 20 bullets, striking Taylor at least 8 times, killing her. Walker was arrested and charged with attempted murder of a police officer. Those charges have since been dismissed. He says the police beat the door for 30 to 45 seconds without identifying themselves. He thought he and Taylor were being attacked by criminals. According to Taylor's attorneys, these were plainclothes officers, not a trained SWAT team. The Louisville police didn't find any drugs. We know that Taylor wasn't even the person police were investigating. In an affidavit for the no-knock warrant for Taylor's home, a detective claimed to have consulted with a postal inspector who confirmed that Glover had been receiving packages at Taylor's addresses. Glover was a suspected drug seller. But the Louisville postal inspector has since said that he was never consulted by the officers and that there was nothing suspicious about the packages. A source with knowledge of the case has since told me that the packages contained clothes and shoes. So I'm going to put this in the super chat if you want to read this. But we have to start from the illegality of the no-knock warrant. There was no legal grounds for the police to have a no-knock warrant. But putting that aside, and that's going to be part of the civil rights investigation that the federal government is doing, frankly, I don't hold a lot of hope that they will charge for that. But putting that aside, because you can't hold the police accountable for the no-knock warrant. The police officers have nothing to do with the warrant. They just execute the warrant. They're not the ones that try to get a judge to sign a warrant. Putting that aside, okay? The Attorney General of Kentucky said, using, again, the police officers on the scene who said, yeah, they announced themselves. Are you kidding me? That is one of your essential confirmations that they announced themselves? The police officers who were there? You ever heard of the blue wall of silence? You ever heard of protect your own? He cited the police officers who were there and one witness that say the police officers did announce themselves. Okay, well, when I was there, I heard from not one, not two, not three, not four, many community activists, leaders, and a lawmaker that there was many witnesses who said the police did not announce themselves. But even putting that aside, let's say for argument's sake, the police did announce themselves, right? It's the middle of the night, okay? Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend were sleeping. Do you think from the door to their bedroom, it is with 100% certainty that they would have heard who is announcing themselves? If this announcement that it was police happened, they could have still been asleep and just waking up. Even if they did announce themselves, there is no certainty that Breonna Taylor, Kenneth Walker, or anyone would have heard that police were here, open up. That's number one. Number two, they used a battering ram to force entry into the apartment. Breonna Taylor had no criminal record. No criminal record. Breonna Taylor was a nurse. The use of force to enter her apartment, even if they announced themselves, which I'm not convinced, frankly, they did, it's laughable that the Attorney General of Kentucky is saying our investigation found they announced themselves because other police officers on the scene said they announced themselves, and one independent witness said so, when there are a variety of witnesses who said, no, we didn't hear police announce themselves. Of course, We hear from Republicans all the time, don't tread on me. I need these bazooka guns to protect my family if there's a break-in. If you're sleeping, even if police do announce themselves, and you don't hear who they are, one of the first things you're going to do is grab your gun, and if you see, if you hear commotion and are unsettled, and then from your hallway see the door broken in with a battering ram, are you not going to shoot, thinking that you're about to be attacked or murdered? The Attorney General of Kentucky said Officer Mattingly and Cosgrove were legally justified in firing because they were fired at. Well, the reality is they weren't legally justified at using a battering ram to penetrate and break down the door of a woman who had no criminal record. As far as the police were concerned, was of no threat. You know, maybe you'd have more legal grounds if you're breaking into somebody's home with a violent criminal record that could have a lot of weapons, what have you. In this case, there was none of that. Absolutely none of that. So, basically, because of Kentucky and many parts of the country, including Florida's, insane self-defense laws that allow civilians or police to do whatever the hell they want, essentially what they're saying is Kenneth Walker, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, wasn't legally justified to shoot, but it was the police who intruded into this sleeping couple's home who were legally justified because they were fired at. Here's an idea. Why don't you knock and knock and knock and knock 50 times, knock 100 times until they answer, and announce yourself as police? There was no, even if a no-knock warrant was issued, which I just showed you was illegal, it should have never been issued in the first place, and that's separate. That's the civil rights. That's the civil rights investigation. Why was a 26-year-old black woman deemed such a threat that if they didn't answer right away, that you need to use a battering ram to break into her apartment? Wouldn't you be scared enough if you don't know who's screaming outside your apartment? If they then batter through your door, wouldn't you shoot? But the biggest slap in the face to the legacy of Breonna Taylor and her family is the officer, Mr. Mattingly, Sergeant Mattingly, who, by the way, 2 days ago sent an email at 2 a.m. to his cop friends using the term thugs for protesters. So we kind of know how his mind works. They didn't even charge him for the wanton endangerment, which again is only up to 5 years in prison. They didn't actually charge him for wanton endangerment related to shooting into Breonna Taylor's apartment. They charged him for wanton endangerment for the bullets that were fired into separate apartments. So for the actual Breonna Taylor's death, there is no charges related to Breonna Taylor's death. And that is what Breonna Taylor's lawyer is tweeting about. Let me read it one more time. Jefferson County grand jury indicts former officer Brett Hankison with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in first degree for bullets that went into other apartments, but nothing for the murder of Breonna Taylor. This is outrageous and offensive. So what he's saying is, and this is what the Attorney General just announced, and we got 300 people watching, so please press that like button. The more people that press the like button, which is the thumbs up, the more people that will see this live stream. For Breonna Taylor's murder, let me be very clear. There's no charges related to Breonna Taylor. The only charges is they are citing disregard related first degree wanton endangerment, which is substantial danger of death or serious physical injury, which is Class D, punishable $10,000 and up to 5 years in prison, related to all the bullets that went into other apartments, another apartment, apartment 3, which included a pregnant woman and an infant. For Breonna Taylor's apartment, the Attorney General of Kentucky literally just stood up there and said, yep, even though they barged in with a battering ram, Sergeant Mattingly and Detective Cosgrove were legally justified to fire bullet after bullet after bullet at Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker because Kenneth Walker shot first. How insanely backwards of a legal system do we have? If you basically break in to somebody's home in the middle of the night, let's put aside for a second whether they announce themselves or not. I got news for you. Most people in the middle of the night, unless they're doing it for 5-10 minutes, if you announce yourself for 20-30 seconds, they might not hear it if you're sleeping. So putting aside whether they did or did not announce themselves, the evidence that the Attorney General presented is not sufficient to me. I think he says because other police officers at the scene confirmed they did. Oh, okay, so the 3 officers, colleagues, are saying that they announced themselves. Would you expect anything else? Whether they did or not, the police are going to protect each other. And you cite one independent witness who says so when there were multiple witnesses who said they did not. But putting that aside, if they did not take every single measure to make an arrest rather than a murder, meaning they did not take as much time as humanly possible to give Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker time to come out or open the door for them. They did not give Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker enough time to even know what was going on, who was at their door. If they did announce themselves, it was most likely very brief, and then they went in with a battering ram. That's legally justified for someone without a criminal record, who, by the way, was pulling late shifts as a nurse treating coronavirus patients? Well, if that's legally justified, then we need to figure out how to change many laws. And by the way, the Attorney General of Kentucky was citing Kentucky law. The law is half-assed backwards in all states in this country, particularly criminal law. Secondly, the Attorney General of Kentucky, if you watched his speech, put a lot of emphasis on who delivered the fatal shot to Breonna Taylor, as if that was that would be determinative if manslaughter charges were going to be filed or what charges were going to be filed. It doesn't matter who issued the fatal shot to Breonna Taylor, whether it was Sergeant Mattingly, Detective Cosgrove, or the other officers. The bottom line is they didn't need to use the force they needed to use. Now, if you are outside the apartment, if you're the police, if you're outside the apartment, okay? Let's say you did announce yourself and they're not coming to the door. And all of a sudden, shots start getting fired at you from inside, at you when you're outside. That's a different circumstance. Then I would say, well, maybe you do have the right to shoot back. But if you just barge into an apartment in the middle of the night, yeah, of course you're going to get shot at. Why is the Attorney General, why is the law putting the onus on the victim that the murderers were legally justified because they were shot at first? Well, Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker were intruded on first with an illegal no-knock warrant. Once again, the Washington Post wrote about it. Other people wrote about it. The judge was lied to. The judge who issued the no-knock warrant. It should have never happened in the first place. I'll read it one more time for those that came late. In the affidavit for the no-knock warrant for Taylor's home, a detective claimed to have consulted with a postal inspector who confirmed that Glover Glover was a ex-boyfriend or something of Breonna Taylor's, had been receiving packages at Taylor's house, and Glover was a suspected drug seller. But the Louisville postal inspector has since said that he was never consulted by the officers and that there was nothing suspicious about the packages. A source with knowledge of the case has since told me the packages contained clothes and shoes. Much of this has been previously reported. Here is what has yet to be reported. The no-knock warrant for Breonna Taylor's home was illegal. In the 1995 case, Wilson v. Arkansas, the court recognized for the first time that the Castle Doctrine and the knock and announce rule are embedded in the Fourth Amendment. The Castle Doctrine, which dates back centuries to English common law, states that the home should be a place of peace and sanctuary. Accordingly, except for the most extreme circumstances, the police must knock, announce themselves, and give time, keyword, key phrase, give time for the occupants of a home to answer the door peacefully and avoid the potential violence and destruction of a forced entry. The Wilson ruling did allow for some exceptions, though, most notably if the police can show that knocking and announcing would allow a particular suspect to dispose of evidence, flee, or assault the officer serving the warrant. The police can enter without knocking. Well, we don't have that here. When they say if the police can show that knocking and announcing would allow a particular suspect to dispose of evidence, flee, or assault the officer serving the warrant. Well, you got a nurse with no criminal record. So if the police can show that she posed a threat of disposing evidence, of fleeing, or assault the officers, well, they can't do it on the merits. So then we get down to the reality of the situation, folks. Sorry to break the bad news. Breonna Taylor was a black woman in America. And the police, because she was black, because her ex-boyfriend was an alleged drug seller, they presumed or used the assumption that she might be a risk of dumping evidence of supposed drugs or fleeing or attacking them. What other reason is there to use a battering ram? They did, trust me, based on that statute, the Castle Doctrine, they did not announce themselves and knock for 5-10 minutes. No, this all happened in a matter of a minute. They did not give Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker enough time to come to the door, collect themselves. I don't know about you. If I'm asleep, it's going to take me a minute or two at least to wake up, get, cognitively get with it, understand what's going on, wonder, am I dreaming or is this real? I mean, I'm not kidding. You ever remember waking up from a dream and wondering, am I dreaming or am I up? They discriminated against Breonna Taylor because she was a black woman. They would have not made the same mental hypothesis that we need to use a battering ram for some white kid in a nicer suburb of Kentucky. That I can tell you. It's outrageous. And the thing is, when law enforcement and police frame things as this was a tragedy but not a crime. No, this actually wasn't a tragedy, because a tragedy kind of implies there was nothing that could have been done different. Tragedy just is a reckless, mistake or tragedy of events. It was basically an accident. This is not an accident. There were lies told to get the no-knock warrant. Frankly, I don't believe that they announced themselves, or if they did, they certainly didn't do it enough or loudly enough or enough times over a span of minutes, not seconds, to give this was not 3 p.m. You're talking, I think it was 12:30 in the morning. And the actual charge, once again, There is no charges related to the death of Breonna Taylor. The one officer charged with wanton endangerment, which is only 5 years he would face once this goes to trial, they're charging him with the bullets that went into other apartments. And the truth is, folks, I can't put this completely on the grand jury, because remember, the Attorney General of Kentucky and their investigators provide the grand jury with the evidence. The grand jury is basically tied to making a ruling on if to charge and what to charge on based on the evidence provided. They can't create evidence out of thin air. So the evidence the grand jury was given was this bullshit, excuse my French, that, oh no, they did announce themselves because there were police at the scene who said they announced themselves, and one independent civilian close enough to hear the police announce themselves. Well, I throw the police out who said they announced themselves because I don't really care what the police say. They're going to protect their own whether they announce themselves or not. One witness versus many other witnesses who said they did not announce themselves. That's the evidence that they announced themselves. So that's what they gave the grand jury. They also did not give the grand jury any evidence related to the no-knock warrant because the Attorney General at his press conference said himself, we did not actually look into the no-knock warrant. That is being looked into as far as the federal civil rights investigation. Well, go ask Eric Garner and his family how the federal civil rights investigations works out for black people in America. And that, by the way, the Eric Garner federal civil rights investigation was done under President Obama. The ultimate decision not to charge happened under Trump. It was started under Obama. So do you really have a lot of faith that they're going to file civil rights charges against any of these officers federally under this president or even a President Biden? The bottom line is the Attorney General delivered the grand jury a case that basically says, here's the evidence. The evidence is the officers were legally justified at shooting this woman and man dozens of times between the three of them after intruding into their apartment because they were shot at. Can you imagine that? Imagine if, like, you go to rob a gas station and the person at the front desk shoots back and kills you. Oh no, they use this as oh no, this is for home robberies. There's been cases where somebody robs somebody's home and the person getting robbed is charged because the person who actually robbed them injures themselves in the person's home. That's the equivalent of what's going on here. You can't say they were legally justified at shooting back because they weren't legally justified in barging in and intruding in the first place. I want to play you a clip from my reporting trip. For those of you that remember, we went to Louisville to cover the demand for justice for Breonna Taylor over the summer. I want to play you this clip. I think it's really powerful. This is Ja'Cory Arthur, who is now a city councilman from Louisville. You know, we're steeped in the old Confederacy here and all of that.
So I'll take us back centuries first, because to understand the Louisville Metro Police Department, we have to understand the Louisville Police Department, which is what it was before our city merger. And it was founded in the 1820s, and that's in the thick of slavery. And it was founded to maintain, patrol, and regulate the slave population, capture them, lynch them, burn bodies literally. It was created to protect private property, private capital. And unfortunately, in the case of the institution of slavery, a slave was private property. We were property. We were not even people. So that's why our police department was created. And this occurred, of course, it occurred through the Civil War. And we actually started to see black police officers, but not until the 1920s. And the first black man who was a police officer, his name was William Woods. He was killed in the line of duty for mistaken identity by a white drug addict. And his crime, that murder, was never brought to justice. And then you fast forward 100 years after that, 2020s, Breonna Taylor, David Yahya McAtee, who was killed by the National Guard, who came here to Louisville, just like they did over 50 years ago when we were marching in the streets for police terrorism. I said all that to say this. We were getting killed in the 1820s during the slavery pandemic. We were getting killed in the 1920s during the Jim Crow legal segregation pandemic. And we're getting killed in the 2020s during the coronavirus pandemic. The police department was created for this sole purpose, and they're still doing exactly what they were hired to do. And when you zoom in a little closer, Breonna Taylor, she is one example of someone who has been killed. We have Dewantes Mitchell here in Louisville. We have a brother named Shelby Gazaway, Michael Newby. All of these black people have been assassinated by police in this city, and none of them have been brought to justice. None. And we're still waiting over 113 days later after Breonna was killed in her home for that justice. And that justice, as we demand it, it's also important we define it. And it looks like a whole lot of different changes. But from a transactional level, we have gotten the 911 call released with Kenneth Walker, which I strongly advise.
So this has a very long history in Louisville and many other places in the United States. The bottom line is a grave miscarriage of justice has happened today. And if you're Breonna Taylor's family, how do you move on from this? Even if there was manslaughter charges or, first-degree murder. How do you move on when essentially the charge that has been brought isn't even for the bullets fired into Breonna Taylor's apartment? Again, the wanton endangerment is for the bullets that went into other apartments. How do you square that Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old woman with a future ahead of her, a boyfriend. Apparently he was going to propose. She was treating coronavirus patients. She was presumed to possibly be hiding or storing drugs for her ex-boyfriend. Why? Why was this assumed? She didn't have a criminal record. She wasn't a drug dealer. Even if she was, that's a reason to batter in to her home. And this goes into America's priorities. Police, governments, fixated on chasing drug dealers instead of figuring out why are people so destitute, so desperate that they have to sell drugs in the first place. No, we don't want to look at that, because then we'd have to look at the reality that we've left the masses to fend for themselves because we don't live in a country. We live in the United Corporations of America. I want to play you one more clip from my time in Louisville. Here's a Black Lives Matter leader on the Breonna Taylor case. This was months ago. No forced entry. And like you said, it seems like this investigation is just a dog and pony show so far.
Dog and pony show. They've done this to every family that's been murdered by the police. We are having families who are still needing information or even to hear from LMPD about their child being murdered by the police. If you're murdered by somebody else, you get that information. Like that takes place when a civilian on a civilian crime. But if the state murders your child, you don't hear a peep or anything about them. Shelby Gazaway exited a Kroger's and was murdered on site. Dewantes Mitchell was set up and ambushed by the police while on the phone, murdered on site. DeMondre Jordan murdered on site. Corey Boykin leaving a building, murdered on site, and so many others within these years.
David McAtee was left in the street for 12 hours.
Like 13. So, and on that day, it was just really hectic because, you know, you got families that are just wondering what is going on. This is happening. And it was just an intense day for us. And our question was, why was the National Guard even in the West End? Like, it didn't even make any sense for them to patrol. So you was getting ready to patrol our city to make sure that we were there. And people are talking about, oh, we don't want a police state. Well, if the National Guard was just going to patrol, why didn't they patrol Anchorage? You know, why didn't they patrol the Highlands? Or why didn't they patrol the Indian Hills where a lot of the city influencers live? Like, patrol those areas. Let's make sure you're not protesting because they know who it is they're looking for and who they want to target. And we're just looking at, like, this disdain, like a complete gross disdain over black bodies, period. And I think that's why this moment is a lot different than any other moments, because you are watching what took place during coronavirus, talking about essential workers, but then you put them on a hierarchy. So if you're a doctor, you're here, you're doing government officials, but if you work at Family Dollar, the grocery store, you're down here, and there's a lot of us. And it's a lot more down that way, and they were mostly black and brown. And so now there's this compassion around, like, you know, what is really taking place and really understanding the racism. I think that's what people are seeing in the Breonna Taylor case, but that's what's fueling them to not even give a fuck, right? They don't give a fuck that they don't have to put all that information on an incident report because they have that bargaining agreement that can support them to hire them in either this position, another position, or another police force. And so that's what we've been seeing. The police officers that attacked me are actually lieutenants with this police force. And 6 months later, after they attacked me, they went on to kill a man with his handcuffed behind his back 12 times.
And what did they do to you?
Oh, just toss me around on the ground, just while looking for help, just anything that they want to. And it was like, you need to assault people just to get your message through. And that's a problem. If we're talking about violence, we have to include, and that's one of our number one demands. If we're talking about violence, we're talking about gun violence, we have to include police terrorism in that violence, because it's ultimately like the key. They get funding based on the work that they do. The work that they do is to target black and brown bodies in this country. And so if we want that money to shift, if we want the investment into black lives, into brown communities, we have got to divest from one of the most money-making pieces of our government, and it is public safety underneath the police.
Mm-hmm. And can you kind of talk about, to me, you look at the...
That was Chanel Helm, a Black Lives Matter leader in Louisville. And we were in Louisville when no one else was over the summer, long before this announcement. So that's what we do. Give the microphone back to the people. She was not given the microphone on CNN, MSNBC, or elsewhere. Another element of this that I didn't hear from the Attorney General of Kentucky, the police lied in the police report about this incident. The police that he claimed were legally justified at shooting Breonna Taylor 6, 7, 8 times. Police in Louisville, Kentucky released a nearly blank incident report Wednesday from the night Breonna Taylor was fatally shot in her apartment by officers, despite the fact that the 26-year-old EMT was shot at least 8 times during the no-knock search. The report listed Taylor's injuries as none. Yeah. Death is the new none, right? Police also checked no next to the box that says forced entry on the form, but witnesses and crime scene photos show officers used a battering ram to force entry into the apartment while Taylor was asleep. When officers were given the opportunity to explain how the fatal events of that night unfolded under their report's notes narrative section, they wrote only PIU investigation for public integrity. So, in America, if you're a cop, you could barge in with a battering ram not doing everything humanly possible to give whomever you're searching time to answer the door in the middle of the night? You could shoot dozens of times between 3 officers. You could then lie about it in the police report and get a complete slap in the wrist. Remember, only 1 officer has been charged. 2 others, not charged, still have their jobs. By the way, we don't even honestly know if this 1 officer who's been charged with wanton endangerment, facing up to 5 years in prison, we don't even know if he's going to be convicted. If he is convicted, does he actually serve his full 5 years? I mean, I don't even think it's a slap in the wrist. I think it's an insult. I think it's a slap in the face. Then you have the fact that they did not come with any medics. Breonna Taylor was briefly alive after police shot her, but no one tried to treat her. Well, you can't treat her if you don't come with any medical personnel, can you? Just after midnight, March 13th, Louisville police officers fired more than 20 bullets into Breonna's apartment, striking her 5 times. That's debatable. Some reports have 8. But she was still alive, at least briefly. For at least 5 minutes, she was coughing as she struggled to breathe, according to Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend, who told investigators she was alive as he called her mom and yelled for help. Police are yelling like, come out, and I'm on the phone with her mom. I'm still yelling help because she's over here coughing, and like, I'm just freaking out, Walker said in a recorded police interview 3 hours after the shooting. They lie on the police report. She was alive for several minutes with no medical treatment. Yet the police were completely legally justified to kill her. And you wonder why they say there's 2 justice systems. Actually, there's 3 justice systems. There's the justice system for bankers, fossil fuel executives, pharmaceutical executives, real estate developers, Silicon Valley executives, plutocrats, kleptocrats. So that's one justice system. Then there's a justice system for, middle class, white people, whatever's left of the middle class. And then there's justice for black, brown, indigenous people. What do you think? I haven't been pushing the super chat, but thank you for those that have left donations. Chandler Williams, $5. Ja'Cory Israel, 1, and part of the ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery Political Movement. Please interview Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. Thank you for the super chat. I'd like to know what you guys think of this. Right now, from the corner of my eye, there are major protests in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm not going to lie to you. I think as the hours turn to evening, they have a 9 o'clock curfew. I think protests are going to turn to something worse, unfortunately. And frankly, I don't really blame protesters. And for people that do more than protesting or whatever, I'm not calling for anything or violence, but I could certainly understand it. How many times as a black person in America, I'm not speaking as a black person, obviously, but how many times could you be shot at, killed, your brother's being killed, your family's being killed, your best friend's being killed, your teachers being killed, your community being killed? How many times can it happen with police getting no accountability or a slap in the wrist before, you know what, protesting in the streets, it ain't working. We've got to do something more. This is not justice. It's a slap in the face to Breonna Taylor, her family. They did not have legal justification to be there in the first place. They certainly didn't have legal justification to use a battering ram to intrude. They could have done many other things, tried several different ways to end this with a non-lethal resolution. And they didn't, because the police do whatever the hell they want in this country. And they definitely have a different level of concern when it comes to black people than white people. That's just a fact. Thank you, Timothy, $5. No justice in America. Brace yourselves. Now, for those of you that have seen this, I apologize. For those of you that haven't, I'm going to play it again. I think on this completely unjust and unjust moment, I want to play the interview I did with Breonna Taylor's aunt, Bianca, while I was in Louisville. I think it's important to hear from her aunt, even though this was from months ago, in the context of this injustice today.
So we're here with Bianca Austin, as you can see, Breonna Taylor's aunt. And first, I just want to ask, I mean, I'm sure the answer is not great, but how's the family been holding up? We're now 116 days since this happened.
Just holding up, taking it one day at a time. Just one day at a time. As you can see, we just got through the holiday, so it's definitely, her presence was definitely missed. So, yeah.
And before we get into everything that happened, I just think it's important for viewers who don't know, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about Breonna, who she was, her personality?
Well, Breonna was this just young, she was just full of life. She was a very hard worker. She was all about women empowerment. She was all about just bettering herself as a human being. She was about setting goals. She was about family, just being with family. And Breonna she was a good time. You know, if you knew her, her energy would just make you want to get to know her. So.
And you know, I think from the start, we've seen over the last few days the problems with the police department here, but
the last few years.
Yeah.
But
was it ever explained to your family, like, why the need to come in commando style for a woman who had no criminal record, was an EMT? There was no reason to come in like that in the first place.
I mean, we ask ourselves that questions every day. Like, we've been asking that since day one. Like, why this? Like, why come to her house with this? I mean, yeah, it's mind blowing. We want answers too. That's what we waiting on. You know what I mean? We've been waiting over, what you said, 116 days. So we've been waiting, and we still yet to get a straight answer out of anybody.
And the family recently filed in court, basically saying that the raids that the police did were part of a broader effort to gentrify a whole block in Louisville, in the west end of Louisville. Can you kind of talk about that?
Well, I can't elaborate on that, but I know Sam Aguiar and Lanita Baker has been working endlessly, just trying to find answers. And I believe some of the evidence that they came across, he strongly believes that is one of the reasons this raid happened.
And, you know, we saw in the case of George Floyd, the police first lied about what happened.
Yes.
They said, oh, during a routine arrest, he was in medical distress.
Yeah.
We recently found out that they said that on the police report there was no forced entry. They said no injury.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 of the officers are still working.
Yeah.
No criminal charges. So here you get to basically assassinate someone while they're sleeping, lie about it, and there's nothing's
still
been
get
done.
paid for it. Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on the lies and the cover-up after the fact?
It's definitely an insult to the family. You know what I mean? That's what we was waiting around for, like at least the police report. But, you know, they put that blank sheet of paper out, and, you know, this incompetent police work that they showed, and just the lies from day one. If you've been following the story, you know, they lied from day one, whether it was a no-knock, whether they announced. They shouldn't have been there in the first place. So it's very upsetting. You know, we just trying to stay patient because we want all the details to come out in this case. You know what I mean? We want everybody held accountable. You know, not just those 4 officers, but, I mean, this was a team of people. You know what I mean? Like, this is mind-blowing that
this goes on in the city of Louisville, especially to a young woman who was doing everything right. She worked 2 jobs. She had her own house, her own car, you know what I mean? And she didn't get an opportunity to start a family. She didn't get an opportunity to better herself, you know, and level herself up. Like, it's heartbreaking, you know, and we miss her every day.
And not only that, but while this happened, COVID was beginning to break out.
Yes,
she was an EMT worker treating patients.
Treating patients. Yeah, saving lives. Every day. Get up. Not from 1 job, but 2. You know what I mean? So it is, like, we devastated. Like, I don't like, and that's an understatement, it's devastation. It's a nightmare. You know, some days we feel like we're in a twilight zone, and we just want to know, like, why are they doing this to us? Like, why did they do this to her? Like, why do we have to go through this? This isn't right. You know what I mean? Yeah, so we just want answers. We want justice. And from day one, like I said, if we're not going to stop until these people are held accountable.
And can you kind of elaborate? Because when we got here yesterday, we were about to start an interview, and like 4 police cars come up. They come in here.
They did it every night.
It ended up like 12 officers, all to force protesters to knock down a tent.
Yeah, we experienced it. We experienced it too. We came down for the 4th of July. You know, we had our, you know, we was at home most of the day, and then the kids, they wanted to come light fireworks, you know, for the people down here. So that's what we did. We came hang out. You know, it was just, it's the 4th of July. It's a holiday, you know. And as we're lighting fireworks, it was an army of just police officers that, I mean, I almost got ran over. They almost ran me over. Like, it was just crazy. And only they did all that to come tell us to move 1 vehicle that was in the street.
That's every day.
And it's been happening every day. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't know. I guess they just running wild since they don't, you know, have a police chief, or they don't have any leadership, you know. They don't have a police chief.
But where's the leadership? Like, you have a governor, you have a mayor.
Yeah.
What have they been doing?
The mayor, you know, I don't have anything good to say about the mayor, so I'm just not going to say anything at all.
Greg Fisher. Yeah.
So Greg Fisher, he's another one on my list. Mm-hmm. And just know we coming for you too, Greg Fisher.
And can you kind of talk about the history? I mean, obviously, we're in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. You got the Confederacy, segregation.
Yeah.
And I see the cops smirking at the protesters, mm-hmm. most of them white.
They taunting them. They come down here and instigate stuff all the time. Like, you know. Yeah.
They pay people to do that.
Yeah.
You think if they suspected, you know, a white kid in Lexington was part of some drug ring, they'd go in the middle of the night?
Oh, of course not. Even Fisher's son been a part of some type of drug activity, but, you know, we don't see that on the news at all, you know. Just like they swept his case under the rug like they tried to do Breonna's, but, you know.
And can you kind of talk about, my understanding is your mother was driving around for hours the night this happened.
My sister.
Your sister, excuse me. The night this happened.
Yeah.
And then when they got there, the police kind of made it seem like maybe there was a domestic altercation.
Yeah, they tried to turn the narrative around. So, like, you know, she gets the call from Kenny, and she makes her way over there, and before she gets on the scene, the officer directed her to the hospital, where she assumed that Breonna was getting medical attention. She sat at University Hospital for 2 hours before a nurse came out and asked her, you know, can we help you? Are you all waiting on somebody? And she says, yeah, my daughter's here. And she told her, you know, her daughter, Breonna Taylor, she was involved in something, and she was supposed to be in the ER. And the lady went and checked and came back and said, ma'am, we don't have anybody in here by that name. We don't have a patient. Are you sure you're at the right hospital? And that alone is just, I just can't imagine her I just can't imagine. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then when she made her way back, she still didn't get any information. She, you know, told everybody who she was. And when she finally did talk to an officer on the scene, they told her her daughter was still in the house. And I guess that was their way of telling her that she was deceased. We don't really know what that meant, but, you know, just and this is just tell you just how they operate. They have no type of it was no type of professionalism or anything on the scene. It was just a whole shit show. You know what I mean? It basically is what it was. And Breonna lost her life in the midst of all this. It's crazy.
And there was a report in the New York Times, I think I saw it yesterday, that possibly she was alive for a little bit, but they didn't provide any medical attention.
And that's what bothers me the most. You know, when I'm sorry, when you do these raids and stuff, like, you know, I'm pretty sure 911 is, you know, informed about, you know, if you get these calls, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure everybody was kind of informed. But then again, I don't really know who did what or where. But
well, Kenneth called
if somebody,
911,
if somebody calls you screaming for help in 911, they never treated her. They never came to her apartment, nothing at all. And to know that that's what she did, is to get out here and save lives every freaking day, and nobody came to her aid, is disgusting. And Louisville Metro Police Department should be ashamed of themselves.
And what's also alarming is they tried to charge Kenneth, the boyfriend, with murder. I mean, imagine if you're just in bed, people come in commando. All these right-wingers say, don't tread on me, shoot first, ask question later. But apparently black people are not afforded the same thing.
It don't apply to us, apparently. It don't apply to us. So, I mean, you know, it's the whole, I mean, everything about this situation that you think can go wrong is going wrong, and it gets worse every day. Like, every detail that comes out is just a slap in the face. And, you know, thank God, you know, Kenny was there, you know what I mean? So, and we just glad he's still here, you know, because he could have been dead too. You know, Janiyah could have been dead. She lives there. Thank God she wasn't at home. She could have died. So, I mean, little Journey that stays the night, she could have died. Little 2-year-old baby. That room where all them bullet holes come through, that's where they hang out at. So it's just unfortunate, and we gonna make sure this ever happens again to nobody. Like, this is crazy.
And how do you feel in terms of, obviously this happened in March, then in May the George Floyd murder happens.
Yes.
In that case we had video.
Yes.
And then this national civil rights, police brutality, protest against racism starts. Breonna's name has been covered, but maybe not as much as some others. Do you feel in some ways it hasn't gotten the attention it should have?
Well, let's just go back. Well, at first it was Ahmaud Arbery.
Right, Ahmaud Arbery.
Before Breonna, it was Ahmaud Arbery. You know what I mean? And when that came out, it was, oh God, like, this is crazy. Like, did y'all, you know, is this real? You know? And then when the Breonna's death happened, it was, like you said, right around COVID-19, and you know, we were ordered to, you know, stay in our house, or, you know, it was only, you know, the businesses were shutting down, people were shutting down, people were getting laid off, you know, we were ordered to stay at home. And so that was happening, you know what I mean? So it was even hard for her to plan a funeral, her memorial service. So we barely had one, but, you know, thanks to my church, Greater Friendship, you know, our pastor, Derek Miles, you know, he went against the odds and says, no, this lady deserves, you know, to be sent home properly. So we was thankful for that. And then we were fighting. I mean, after that, I mean, we was, you know, we've been fighting ever since. And it wasn't until George Floyd that happened, unfortunately. And I think that's when Breonna's name took off. But the difference is, though, there were video in those two. So people actually got to see what happened. As opposed to Breonna, people are so fixated on details. They want to know details. What kind of person was she? Like, whose house was she at? Who was she dating? And to me, none of that shit really matters. You know what I mean? Because here it is. This woman was in her own home, and they could have honored this warrant earlier during the day, like they did any other one. But they made the decision to go in this single woman's home and kick in her door for somebody she had no dealings with at the time. Like, it's ridiculous. It's clear that the cops didn't do their homework. You know, it's clear that they didn't do any investigation, and it's clear that they was playing this cat and mouse game with local drug dealers, and Breonna's life got sacrificed in the midst of all this. It's just very unfortunate. And what I will say is that, and as I've been saying, that they should have never been there. They should have never been there, and evidence will show the world that they should have never came to her house. Breonna wasn't involved in any drugs. She wasn't in a drug ring. She didn't even do drugs. You know what I'm saying? So it don't make sense to us. So we know the truth. We want them to just say, damn, we made a mistake. Like, let's fix this. But no, instead of that, we got to go through the ringer. We got to fight. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to fight. And we're going to continue to fight for long change, not just a Band-Aid change, not just you give us a shiny nickel. We want long change. We want to be able to live. We know black people should be able to be wealthy. We should be able to drive nice cars. We should be able to live in nice houses without people being profiled, without saying, oh, they must be selling drugs. You know, like, you know, Breonna comes from a hard-working family. We all work hard.
You're also in the medical
work in
field.
healthcare. I deal with COVID patients every day. I watch it. It's real. You know what I mean? So, and, you know, they took this precious life from us. It's so unfortunate. It hurts just to even talk about her in past tense. You know, I get emotional because she should be here. She should be here with us right now.
What does it say to you to see this coming together? You have a lot of white people now.
Oh man,
joining.
I love it. I love it. Like I mean, I love to come down here. I love hanging out with everybody. Like I love it. I love, like, we love to march. Our family loves it. Our kids love it. I mean, and we appreciate them. We love them. We tell them all the time, like, we love it and we appreciate y'all, and we're gonna ride this out to the end because they know it's not right. You know what I mean? And anybody that's rational that knows it's not right. So.
And call me, maybe I'm just a common sense person, but what exactly are they even investigating at this point? They've spoken with the witnesses.
Yep.
I mean, they have a fake police report. The police officers lied.
There you go.
They didn't find any drugs. Even if they did, that's not a reason to be assassinated. Mm-hmm. So it seems to me this is kind of a dog and pony show.
Yeah, it's just like they waiting around to get their story together. You know, even when Daniel Cameron stepping in, like, all right, he's been here almost a month. So, I mean...
The Attorney General?
The Attorney General that's taking over from Tom Wine. So I guess, you know, they expect us to just, I don't know, play the waiting game. There's nothing much more we could do besides continue to make these phone calls, continue to dig deep, you know, and we're going to continue to march. Every day they're going to see us, every day.
Do you have a message at all for the current senators of Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, who I assume has not spoken with your family?
No, Mitch McConnell has not reached out to the family, and I don't think he probably ever will. Honestly, I don't even really think he'd give a shit until it started affecting his pockets. You know, then he may probably come forward. As far as Greg Fisher, I just feel like you should just step down. You know, you're supposed to be a man of integrity and honesty and honor. You haven't shown that at all. You know, just like the police chief, he stepped down, you know. Get some people in here that's going to make a change and make a difference. And, you know, we should all be able to live amongst each other freely without being judged and by the color of our skin. It's 2020 and we still getting judged by the color of our skin. We still fighting the fight from generations ago. It's ridiculous. Like, when is enough enough? You know?
Has Amy McGrath, who just became the Democratic nominee, been in touch with your family?
No, Amy McGrath couldn't even say Breonna's name. You know, congratulations to her win, but, you know, I don't think she's clueless about Breonna's place. I don't think she know anything at all, to be honest.
She's never reached out to your family?
Never reached out. As of today.
And obviously Charles Booker has been.
Yes. So Booker, I mean, he's been down here. We've been in contact with him multiple times. He's been supportive of the family.
What does that say to you, that a
just,
Democratic candidate is speaking up for Black Lives Matter but can't make the phone call?
Yeah, it speaks for itself, don't it? It just speaks for itself. It's just genuine, you know what I mean? You can tell who's genuine and who's not. So.
Oh, we got it, thanks. And two more questions because I know it's hot. What does this say beyond Breonna? You guys are basically living in daily terror. I mean, from can't do fireworks without being harassed, can't put up a tent without being harassed, you can't be in your apartment sleeping without being killed. I mean, this is, you want to talk about...
As far as we know, this is a public spot.
It is a public spot.
No, we got the right to be here all.
You want to talk about a pandemic. I mean, this has been going on for centuries.
Yes.
I mean, some politicians are putting up murals, but in the case of Louisville, you guys are demanding cut the police budget. They increased it.
Yeah.
You guys are demanding, you got the no-knock warrants, which is good, but you're demanding certain things and they're just slow-walking you.
Yeah.
How should people help? And people dealing with this in other communities, what do you want to see happen?
I just want to see just people just come forward. White silence is a thing. You know what I mean? I know plenty of people come up to me and say, oh, they support me in silence but won't support me in public. You know what I mean? So that's a big thing. And people need to come forward. Just make time. I mean, do whatever you can to contribute to change. Just don't sit back and judge. A lot of people are so judgmental, and they have it's people from all walks of life down here. They call them animals, they call them this and that, but it's us. We down here. We the people. You know what I mean? And, we try to stay off social media, you know what I mean? Because it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's a blessing that's how we was able to get Breonna's name out. But now, since it's out here, we got to deal with the judgmental people and the racist people on there, calling us whatever disgusting name they can. So I just want people to just come forward, speak up. Now's the time. Now's the time. If marching's not your thing, get on the computer. Email somebody, call somebody, do something. You know what I mean? I mean, you can always donate to the cause also. These people are here every day. They need water. They need fresh food. You know what I mean? So just do whatever you can to support the movement, because at this point, it's a movement. And, I feel like Breonna's life is going to make change, not only for Louisville, but for the world. You know what I mean? So, in it's time. I think people are tired. I think they're tired of fighting, because I know I am. So.
And lastly, what are you hoping, I know it's hard to talk about in the past tense, but what are you hoping that Breonna's legacy will ultimately be?
Oh, man. She wanted so much in life, and we want to honor that for her. We want to empower young women growing up who wants to be an EMT, who wants to become nurses, who wants to start their own business, who wants to, that's what we want, because that's what Breonna, she always encouraged her friends, her family, to just better yourself, become better, and love each other, regardless of what you're going through. You know what I'm saying? She always showed love to everybody. She was a mentor, not only to, our kids growing up. She was a mentor to a lot of people, you know what I mean? And people come up every day and just saying, what she meant to them, what they took from them, and it's an honor, you know what I mean? And we realized, we knew what a great person she was, but it's just so unfortunate, we just lost a big blessing in our life. And I'm just happy, to spend 26 years with her, you know what I mean? I'm just glad she gave us that, so.
And is there anything viewers could do to help your family?
Right now, just for our family, just keep praying for us, because, we got some dark days ahead, it's been hard, but, we're not letting up. So we just take a minute, take a deep breath, and just regroup, and just stay focused on getting justice for Breonna, and that's our main focus at this time.
Thank you for talking to us.
No problem.
So sorry what you're dealing with, and also thank you for treating COVID patients, because you're definitely doing great things,
Yes.
and hopefully we can keep in touch and keep covering this. So.
Yes, it's real. Keep your social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, and justice for Breonna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Bianca Austin, Breonna Taylor's aunt, who I interviewed a couple months ago over the summer when I was in Louisville reporting on the fight for justice. I have not spoken with her today. I don't want to, I'm sure she's getting plenty of messages right now, but I'm sure we will speak and have a follow-up, I hope, in response to the no charges, or one charge, if you even want to call that justice. I should include that the family did settle with the city of Louisville for $12 million. I think 2 weeks ago that was announced, but obviously that $12 million is not replacing Breonna Taylor or giving the family justice for her death. So it's just, as I said, if this is what is the legal system in America, that you could essentially racially profile someone to justify a warrant, barge into their home in the middle of the night, not give them enough time to come to the door or even know who the hell is at their door, scare the living daylight out of them by using a battering ram to barge into their apartment in the middle of the night, and then cite legal justification for shooting at them because they shot at you first. Yeah, they shot at you first because you used a battering ram in the middle of the night to come into their apartment. We're fed by the Republicans and the Don't Tread on Me folks that don't tread on me. You come into my home, that's why I need to arm up to protect me and my family. Well, that's what Breonna Taylor's boyfriend at the time was doing by shooting at them, because they barged in and intruded in their home with a warrant that should have never been issued because, as I already told you, it was illegal. So, sad day. We'll monitor Louisville. At the moment, I'm not going to be going to Louisville because, as I've been telling you, Jen on the road. She's I think in flight right now, actually. So she's flying to the West Coast right now with our cameraman. So they will be on the West Coast for approximately the next week, starting in Portland, covering not just wildfires that have been raging in Oregon, but the ongoing protests for Black Lives Matter in Portland. This weekend, the Proud Boys, the white supremacy group that loves President Trump so much, they are having a, I guess, counter protest to the Black Lives Matter protests in Portland on Saturday. So Jen will be there. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to report while staying safe. So Jen's going to be covering that this weekend. She's also going to be covering the wildfires happening in Oregon and California, and going to be covering a really interesting story happening at the border right now between San Diego and Tijuana, where parts of the wall that Trump is trying to build is being protested by indigenous people there. So we definitely think that's a unique story that's not being covered. So we want to be there. We've created a fundraising page just for the trip, where Jen is also going to be posting different photos from the trip and blogs and all that good stuff. We already got one donation. Thank you, Kay Garrett. I don't see your first name, but thank you for being the first person to donate to the brand new fundraising page. Here's the link if you want to go there. to support our reporting on the West Coast trip. I think you'll probably see Jen live at some point tomorrow. John is flying out tomorrow, so they're flying at different times. But Jen will probably go live just to kind of give you a preview of things. But this stuff ain't cheap. Just like you saw my reporting that I just played for you from Louisville over the summer, all of this costs a lot of money. Also want to announce new member, Jason, signed up. So we're at 1,729 members. We're hoping, Catherine, thank you for the donation, Catherine. We're hoping that through Jen's trip, we could grow our membership too. It's been a little tough during coronavirus with so many people struggling financially. So we've lost quite a few members, hoping to grow some new members. So as humbly as I could see it, do you see corporate outlets out covering what we're going to cover? Do you see independent outlets out covering what we're going to cover? I do not. I do not. So that's it. I will be monitoring protests in Louisville and maybe live again a little bit later. Make sure you're on our text list if I do go live later. We had a problem with the text for this, but I'll get it squared away for the next time. So definitely make sure you're on our text list so you get a text message when we're live. Text 370-370 and type in COUP. 370-370, type in COUP, and that way you'll get a text message next time we're live. Thank you for watching on another unfortunate injustice that I had to report to you. I will stay on this story, try to get an interview with Breonna's family, and go from there. Have a good day.